Hi, Jason here from Dickens Real Estate. As promised earlier, we were going to bring you some interviews with some long-time locals. I've got the privilege at the moment to be able to introduce you to Mr. Rob Moore, obviously a previous owner of Dickens Real Estate. In fact, I bought the business off Rob along with a few other people back in 2000, early 2000s. So Rob, welcome.
Thank you.
I'd just like to ask you a few questions if I can and pick your brains based on the fact that we're celebrating 65 years of Dickens' involvement in the local community and in the whole region, realistically, on and off from one end of the valley to the other, and even over the valley and up on the hills over time. I might start a little bit about you, firstly, if I can. Can I just ask you, how long have you lived in Bright?
1981. November 1981.
That nearly makes you a local, you know.
Well, almost. I'm not sure whether that's a good thing because they're all fading away.
Yeah, they are, without a doubt. Can I just ask also, what did you do when you first moved to Bright?
We first came to Bright, we bought the Riverside Caravan Park, which is, when we first came to live here, which is on the far side of the river, Riverside Avenue.
Yep.
It's had a couple of owners since. So that was our first business. Then we bought the bakery down on Gavin Street.
Yep. Do I recall you running a chicken shop there?
You do recall me running a chicken shop.
And
I recall you coming in at 1 o'clock in the morning for a pizza.
I recall maybe calming the crowd down on the odd occasion too.
Yes, it was required. The Myrtleford boys seemed to visit us on occasions.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we are talking historically, so it's great to be able to have this banter. I guess, as you say, the Myrtleford boys used to come up to Bright because there was never anything went on in Myrtleford, but no. We used to have a lot going on in Bright. So what brought you to the area?
Oh, we've had a history here. We had some friends who had a house in Wandie, the Chowells, and we would come up here as young guys. Dave Chowell, Dave Holt, riding motorbikes.
Yep.
And from there it just progressed to the point where one day I saw an ad in the paper for a caravan park. Weekly Times, I was in Ocean Grove at the time. I thought, well, this is a good plan. We had a young baby. Sharon decided that it was all too hard and was horrified at the process. But anyway, we bought it and it's all been great ever since. Uphill
from there. Yep. And did you ever harass the local chicken shop owner when you were coming up as young blokes?
No, wasn't here then.
No worries. So you've already mentioned the first property you purchased was the caravan park. Was that a leasehold or a freehold?
It was a freehold.
Yeah. Can you remember what you might have paid back then?
Paid $120,000 for it.
My goodness gracious me.
From what's his name? Can't remember now. It'll come to me.
Would have been it'll come to me too. Before this interview's over, I'm sure I remember the name.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's amazing.
They lived in New Robin. I can't think of his name now. Kean family.
No, I'll remember his name. In fact, I was friends with the son.
Right.
Who used to drive an XC Falcon. There you go. There's history for you. So, can you tell us what you might be, something about the town or the region that maybe newcomers to the town or the region mightn't know, or young people within their community mightn't know, like how many police were here at the time you arrived, or where the local tip was, or there's a million different things you can think of. But
well, I guess when I think about it, because the Cozy Kangaroo wasn't there, that was a bunch of old buildings that I think Ken Smith, who's now no longer here, lives in Melbourne, I think, he developed.
Yep, I remember that.
There were a couple of old houses down there. The picture theatre was still here. Pat ran the picture theatre.
Which was just down where the news agency is now?
Yep. So, what's the name? Where the supermarket is, where Coles, Woolies is now, that was a Toyota dealership.
Yep. Danny Cavidan, back in those days.
Yep. And I don't think the sports centre was there. So that's all things that were
changed dramatically.
Changed there. The Buffalo Chalet, of course, was firing. Mount Buffalo, we would get 1.5 meters of snow on Buffalo back in those days. Doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
They say global warming doesn't exist, but when you look back at those photos.
Yeah, well, I do remember I grew up at the foot of Mount Buffalo. I know this isn't about me, but I remember as a kid growing up and the snow was always down to the falls, and there was always a lot of it. So, there's a bit of concern there, although as we speak, interestingly, there's a fair bit of snow in the first week.
Yeah, there is
first week of the ski opening.
There is surprising.
Realistically, I just want to have a bit of a chat to you about the history of Dickens and your involvement in Dickens and things like Falls Creek Real Estate.
Yep.
I think Dickens had real estate in Mount Beauty when you owned the business as well, the office in Mount Beauty.
Yep.
So you bought the business from...
We bought the business from Malcolm Sharp and Tony Collins. They bought it from Pat.
Yep.
Pat wasn't licensed.
Being Pat Dickens.
Yeah, being Pat Dickens. Yeah. I think his mum still had the licence.
Was she still alive then?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So Pat ran the business, but he was never licensed, and of course back then they tightened up all the rules.
Yeah.
And I think they tapped on Pat's shoulder and said, "Well, you better do something about it." At that stage, he was sort of getting on in years and decided he didn't want to do it any longer. So Malcolm Sharp and Tony Collins. Tony had a business in Albury, Wodonga.
Yep.
He became the licensee with Malcolm, and then a similar thing happened with Tony Collins.
Yep.
And then we bought it.
Right.
In 1987.
Okay, so when you bought it, you bought in as a licensed agent?
No.
Right. Okay.
We had Joe Roos, who was our licensee. And then I got my licence.
Yep.
Back then it took a long time. It was much harder back then.
I know. It was harder when I got it. You get it off a Wheaties pack nowadays, which is a bit sad because I think it's
sad. Yes.
A very professional industry, but it's a bit sad that it's gone the way it's gone.
Well, I think it was padded out back then. It was much harder. Yeah, they had a lot of units that weren't relevant, but anyway. Yeah. So that was the case then, and so we bought it. We were down there. We're in Barnard Street, where I think Pat must have set it up, and certainly Tony and Malcolm ran it. So we were down there for quite some time, and then Sharon rang me one day and said, "Look, I've got the executive of the estate of Bill Spinks in the office. You might want to talk to him." I said, I said to Sharon, "Look, I'm really busy at the minute. I'm sort of a bit busy. I've got stuff going on." And it had nothing to do with real estate. And she said, no, you really should talk to him. And I said, all right. So anyway, and he said, look, this property at Island Street's coming up for sale. And I said, right, fine, I'll take it, thank you.
And that was about 1998?
Yes, I think it was 98. Maybe it's fading.
I did speak to Sharon and she mentioned that, so I put a sign out the back. I hope you don't mind.
No. So we bought it then.
Yep.
Paid $180,000 for it back then, and bargain, absolute bargain. And did a few renovations, and it's been here ever since.
Yep. Now, interestingly, and you'll be very familiar with this because I remember when we first purchased the business, you did an extension for us out the side and the back.
Yep.
People may have seen on a Facebook post earlier that Bill Spinks used to record the weather on the bricks on the side veranda.
Yep.
Now, ironically, those recordings are still there today, and we posted some on Facebook earlier.
I saw those.
It'll be interesting to see sort of how much response we get to that, but it's also amazing to see how much snow there used to be.
Yes.
In June.
Yep.
As you mentioned earlier, on with regards to Buffalo, it's surprising how much snow there was, and Bill was recording it on the bricks on the side, and they're still there today. So,
yes.
We try not to lean against them or rub on them or do anything. In fact, we cover them up as much as we can to try and preserve them. But
it's got quite a history here. Because Bill's bed was still out the side, but when I did the renovation out the side, I moved a couple of big bluestone blocks, which these foundations are on, and there was two 1875 pennies.
Oh, so it's not all about the property. The pennies would have made a few dollars for you.
Yeah, I still got that. It's because from what I can gather, this side here was the entrance, and the old horse and buggy and coach used to come in the side.
Yeah. So I do recall back in the days of the ski hire when the little building wasn't built between. that the buses used to go down that laneway as well.
Oh, right, okay.
So it was Lang's when
Yes.
I was a kid.
Yep.
And at Lang's Tours used to park their buses out the front and skip between the two buildings and park out the back.
Oh, right, okay.
So that was sometime probably mid 70s, I guess.
Yeah, right. Yep.
So yeah, it's just sad that I can recall those things. Now I'm showing my
Someone
age.
needs to, don't they?
So can I just also pick your brains very quickly, because I know you haven't got much time there, retired. What do you know about the history of Dickens per se? Like we know Eileen was, I think, either the first licensed agent and or the first lady licensed agent in Victoria and had the first office.
Yes.
What do you know about the history of Dickens post that?
Well, she worked out of what used to be the Miners' Cottage.
Right, next door.
Next door.
Where the
For the
now chemist
pharmacies.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. She worked out of there for a long time. And I don't know exactly how long, because I think she got to the point where, she didn't want to do it any longer, and Pat took over, but she certainly worked out of there.
Real estate has that effect on you.
I know, you can see I'm aging, and so are you.
We love it.
But then, the first time I came up here, when I was old enough to actually be interested in real estate, I remember talking to her in the Miners' Cottage.
Yeah, I vaguely recall that. It was a little sign above a side door.
Yeah, like the paper was running out there as well.
Yeah. No, I do recall that.
So that was my only real contact with Mrs. Dickens, and then a few times with Pat and Terry Barras.
Yep.
Worked for Pat, and I think they were together for a long time. Terry moved on.
I didn't know that. There you go.
Yeah, and then after that, I didn't have much contact with Dickens until my involvement with Rotary. I think Pat was still around, but he wasn't in the business then.
Yep.
And then from then on it was Malcolm. I didn't have much to do with Tony Collins.
Yep.
Malcolm wasn't licensed, but he basically ran the business.
Yeah, right. Yep.
And he's now lives in Queensland, I think. So.
Yep. And Malcolm still has a few relations around town, I think,
Yes,
from
of course.
memory. So, and
Plenty.
ironically, Terry Barras has still got a bit of involvement in the town as well. Still,
does he?
to what I believe, yeah.
Oh, right.
Few investments, so shouldn't speak out of school, but I'm sure Terry wouldn't mind.
Yeah, right.
So I guess in the time you purchased it, there was a couple of moves you made, I guess, after you purchased things like the real estate office in Mount Beauty.
Yep.
And also made probably commencement of Falls Creek Real Estate. Can
Yep.
you have a bit of a chat to us around that?
Yeah, well, I can't remember the exact year. Alan Moore, who is no relation, ran the Mount Beauty office for the First National, the professionals
Oh, right, okay.
in Mount Beauty, and he'd been involved with Falls Creek for a long, long time. And back then, he sort of tinkered, he sold a bit of stuff at Falls Creek. He was very knowledgeable of how it all worked up there. A nice bloke, and I still have contact with Alan from time to time. But so he ran it, and then there were some issues with his employment there. Don't want to go into that, but
Yep.
Basically he got to the point where he said to us, "Look, do you want to open an office
Yep.
in Mount Beauty?" Which is what we did. So we did that, and I can't remember the year, but we did it. It was not long after here, and then from there, Alan decided that he was going to retire, and he'd got sick of driving up and down the hill. And I'd had a fair involvement with Falls Creek for some time with ski patrol, and a local character at Falls Creek, the Phantom, Ted Weeks, said to me one day, he said, "Look," he met us in the office, said, "Look, I wouldn't mind selling stuff up
I
there."
was still an Eskimo,
I was doing Eskimo.
which is what Ted's very good at.
That's right. And Ted being Ted, had a great background. Ted's a solicitor by profession, but more of a skier, and said, "Look, I'll do the Falls Creek stuff." So we ran that out of Mount Beauty office.
Yep.
Until such times as we sold that office to Kim.
Yep.
And then set up Mount Beauty Real Estate.
Yep.
Falls Creek Real Estate in its own right.
Right.
And
Yep.
basically Ted and myself ran that until we handed it to you guys.
Fantastic.
So.
Listen, thanks for coming in today.
That's
It's a bit exciting for us being the owners of the business now and having a business that's been in their region for 65 years, and it's exciting to have you here as part of the journey as well. It's fair to say that we've had a great relationship going back into history, and you've made our life a lot easier going forward, which has been fantastic. You've always been great with your time, and it's just a pity that they didn't have digital facilities back in those days, because I'm sure you would have had a gun at it. But you know, what do you see yourself doing? I know you're retired. You're heavily involved in Rotary. You've done how many trips to Timor on behalf of Rotary?
17.
That's staggering, and that's probably about as many years as you've been retired.
Not
So
quite.
it's out of this business.
No,
I mean, you still have
we
full
started.
group
Yeah,
of stuff,
yeah. I mean, time goes really quick.
It does.
You know, Sharon said, "Look, we sold the business in 2001.
2001, yep.
I mean, God, that's a long time
Yeah,
ago.
nearly 20 years,
Yeah.
which is staggering.
So you've been in it now longer than we were,
Yeah,
which is interesting, isn't it? But I mean, it's
amazing.
great. It's great that it
And you
continues
probably-
on.
You probably still look at me as a young pup.
Well, you are young. But I must be. It's one of the oldest continuously running businesses in Bright.
Yeah,
I mean, you got the pubs, but other than that, Mascherini's was until that changed.
yep.
But this would be
Yeah,
next
probably
oldest.
us and Nightingales, I guess. Nightingales will be up there as well.
Yeah, that's a bit different. I
Yeah,
think
a
as
bit
a
different
trader,
too.
as a
Yeah.
retail trader
Yeah.
business, trading business.
Yeah,
So
but
it's
certainly
great that it keeps going. It's fantastic.
A focal point in the main street.
Yep.
It's we certainly, Dickens has been around for a long time, which is great, and it's great that you've been a big involvement, and thanks for coming in.
Thank you. No worries.
Thanks, Rob.
Pleasure. Push stop.